Welcome to our deep dive. Today, we're taking a look at Frank Herbert's Under Pressure.
Yeah.
You probably know Herbert from his epic Dune series.
Right.
But this book, originally published in 1956
Okay.
as The Dragon in the Sea,
Interesting.
it takes us in a whole new direction.
Yeah, we're trading those sandworms for submarines this time.
Yeah, and what's really striking is how Under Pressure,
Yeah.
despite being written during the Cold War,
Yeah.
feels so relevant today.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Set the scene for us.
Okay.
What was going on in the world when Herbert wrote this?
Well, you got to imagine, like 1956, Cold War at its peak.
Right?
And there's this like global obsession with pushing boundaries,
Yeah.
whether it's exploring space or the ocean depths.
Yeah.
Herbert taps into those anxieties brilliantly. He crafts a story that mirrors the era's fears and aspirations.
So it's not just a sci-fi adventure.
No.
There's this deeper layer of Cold War tension. Right.
Woven throughout.
Exactly. The novel centers on a submarine crew
Okay.
tasked with a critical mission, securing vital oil reserves hidden beneath the ocean.
Oh.
But they're not alone down there. The threat of enemy attack
Right.
is constant.
Yeah.
Adding this intense pressure to an already claustrophobic environment.
I can already feel the tension building. The
Yeah.
submarine setting itself seems like a pressure cooker.
Right.
How does Herbert use that to explore like the psychological impact of stress on the crew?
Masterfully. Think about it. You're trapped in this confined space, hundreds of feet below the surface,
Right.
with the weight of the mission and
Yeah.
the constant threat of enemy attack bearing down on you.
That would mess with anyone's head.
Right. And Herbert doesn't shy away from that.
Okay.
He delves into the psychological effects of this kind of pressure, showing how it can warp perception, breed paranoia, and erode trust among even the most seasoned crew members.
Wow. So he's not just giving us action and adventure.
Yeah. He's really digging into the human condition under extreme stress.
Precisely. He shows how the characters grapple with isolation,
Yeah.
fear, and the burden of leadership.
Yeah.
They experience hallucinations, question their own sanity,
Wow.
and struggle to distinguish reality from their own anxieties. It's as much a psychological thriller as it is a sci-fi adventure.
And here's where it gets really interesting, right?
Yes.
Because even though this book was written decades ago,
Yeah.
those themes of resource scarcity and leadership under pressure
Right.
feel so relevant today.
Absolutely. Think about the current concerns we have around, like, oil dependence, climate change, and the pressures faced by leaders in all sorts of fields.
Yeah.
Herbert's exploration of these themes feels eerily prescient.
It's like he was offering a warning,
Yeah.
wrapped in this thrilling underwater adventure. It's
So-
almost like he had a crystal ball.
Yeah.
Now, I have to ask, how does Herbert handle, like, the technological side of things? Was he able to create a believable future for 1956?
He was remarkably ahead of his time.
Really?
Even back then, he was envisioning submarines with advanced capabilities,
Right.
sophisticated communication systems, and even psychological monitoring tools that were way beyond what existed at the time.
So he wasn't just throwing in random gadgets?
Nah,
This tech actually feels grounded and forward thinking.
absolutely.
Okay.
And what's even more fascinating is that some of his ideas, which might have seemed like pure science fiction back then, have actually become reality now.
Wow.
It makes you wonder what else he might have predicted.
Okay, so we've got Cold War anxieties,
Right.
a deep sea setting that's practically a character itself,
Yeah.
and this glimpse into the future of technology. But you mentioned earlier that Under Pressure goes beyond just plot and setting.
Right.
What makes it stick with you even after you've finished reading it?
What resonated with me is that Under Pressure isn't just about survival.
Okay.
It's a study of leadership, resilience,
Mm-hmm.
and the ways stress can shape or break individuals.
Right.
Herbert forces us to confront the complexities of human nature,
Yeah.
the burdens of responsibility,
Yeah.
and the choices we make when faced with extraordinary challenges.
And I bet those choices aren't always easy or straightforward.
Not at all. And that's what makes this book so compelling.
Yeah.
It's a nuanced exploration of the human condition under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And it leaves you with plenty to think about long after you surface from the depths of the story. Welcome back.
Now let's talk about the crew. We've got this pressure cooker environment, hundreds of feet below the surface.
Right.
What kind of people are we dealing with here?
Well,
Yeah, tell us about these characters.
Okay.
How do they cope with these incredibly difficult conditions?
Our protagonist, Commander Ramsey, embodies that struggle. He's a seasoned leader,
Okay.
but the psychological strain of this mission is wearing him down. You know, he's
Right.
constantly second-guessing himself, battling doubts, and desperately trying to maintain a sense of control in an increasingly chaotic situation.
That sounds incredibly relatable.
Yeah.
Even if most of us haven't commanded a submarine. I mean, who hasn't felt the pressure of leadership, you know?
Right.
The weight of making decisions and
Yeah.
that fear of making the wrong call.
And Herbert masterfully portrays those internal struggles,
Right.
making Ramsey's anxieties feel universal,
Yeah.
even within this extraordinary setting. Then we have Dr. Richmond Oberhausen,
Okay.
the ship's psychiatrist.
A psychiatrist on a submarine.
Yeah.
What's his role exactly?
He's tasked with monitoring the crew's mental stability.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the twist.
Okay.
Oberhausen is wrestling with his own demons,
Mm.
his own anxieties. So he becomes both an observer and a participant in the psychological drama unfolding around him.
So it's like the doctor needs a doctor. That seems like a recipe for disaster,
Yeah.
especially in this pressure cooker environment.
That creates this fascinating paradox, right?
Right.
Oberhausen is trying to understand and manage the crew's anxieties
Mm-hmm.
while simultaneously grappling with his own feelings of isolation, paranoia, and fear.
It makes you wonder who analyzes the analyst, right?
Yeah.
What happens when the person you're supposed to confide in
Right.
is struggling with their own demons?
That's precisely the kind of question Herbert raises. And it adds this extra layer of unease to the story.
Yeah.
It makes you question the very nature of sanity and stability,
Right.
especially in an environment where the lines between reality and delusion become increasingly blurred.
So it's not just external threats they're dealing with. The real battle is happening inside their minds.
Exactly. Herbert brilliantly portrays how the constant pressure, the confinement, and the ever-present fear of the enemy
Yeah.
start to erode the crew's trust in each other and, more importantly, in themselves.
This almost sounds like a Cold War thriller.
Right.
Was Herbert drawing on any real-world events
Well, I mean,
or research for the psychological aspect of the book?
Remember, he was writing during the Cold War,
Right.
a time of heightened paranoia and psychological manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
The threat of nuclear annihilation hung over everything.
Right.
And espionage and psychological warfare were very real concerns.
So the anxieties and paranoia that the characters experience in Under Pressure
Yes.
reflect the anxieties of the real world at that time.
Absolutely. Herbert was tapping into the zeitgeist, the prevailing mood of fear and uncertainty.
Right.
And you can't underestimate the influence of the growing interest in psychology during that era.
Yeah.
Herbert was clearly fascinated by the human mind and how it responds to extreme stress.
It makes you think about how our current anxieties about pandemics,
Right.
climate change,
Exactly.
political instability
Yeah.
are shaping our own mental states.
That's an excellent point.
Mm.
And it speaks to the timelessness of Under Pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Herbert's insights into human behavior under duress
Yeah.
continue to resonate with us, perhaps even more so today, as we navigate our own complex
Right.
and often overwhelming world.
It's fascinating how he takes these extraordinary circumstances and
Yes.
makes them feel deeply human and relatable.
Right.
But with a crew on the verge of a breakdown and the mission in jeopardy,
Yeah.
where does the story go from here?
Well, things escalate pretty quickly.
Okay.
The mission encounters some major setbacks.
Mm-hmm.
The crew's mental state deteriorates further.
Mm-hmm.
And the lines between reality and delusion become increasingly blurred.
It sounds like it's about to get even more intense. I'm on the edge of my seat here.
It does, yeah.
Does Herbert offer any resolution to all this tension?
He does. And it's both satisfying and thought-provoking.
No. Okay.
I won't spoil the ending for those who haven't read it.
Right.
But let's just say it's not your typical Hollywood happy ending.
Okay, we're back. And I'm still thinking about those crew members, you know, trapped in that submarine.
Yeah.
With their minds slowly unraveling under the immense pressure.
Right.
So tell me, how does Herbert, resolve all this tension?
Well, without giving too much away, Under Pressure doesn't offer a simple, a clean-cut resolution.
Okay.
There are losses, sacrifices,
Mm-hmm.
and a lingering sense of ambiguity that makes you question the true cost of their mission,
Right.
even if they succeed.
It's not just like a black and white win or lose scenario.
Exactly. Herbert seems more interested in exploring the human cost of this kind of conflict.
Okay.
the psychological scars that these characters carry with them,
Yeah.
even if they make it back to the surface.
It's about, like, the long-term impact, the things that don't just disappear when the mission is over.
Precisely. He seems to be suggesting that true leadership involves acknowledging those scars,
Yep.
understanding the human cost of conflict, and even extending compassion to those who might consider enemies.
That's a powerful idea, especially in the context of the Cold War where, like, the lines between us and them were so clearly drawn.
Right. It's one of the things that makes Under Pressure so thought-provoking.
Yeah.
It challenges those easy binary
Right.
and forces us to consider the complexities of human nature, even in the face of extraordinary circumstances.
We've talked about the Cold War context, the psychological thriller aspects,
Yes.
the futuristic technology,
Okay.
and this nuanced resolution that Herbert offers.
Mm.
But for our listeners who are now intrigued by this book,
Yeah.
what's like the one thing you'd want them to take away from Under Pressure?
I think it's the reminder that even in the most extreme situations, even when we're pushed to our limits,
Right.
we have a choice in how we respond to pressure. We can choose to succumb to fear, paranoia, and distrust, or we can choose to lead with empathy, courage, and a commitment to our shared humanity.
It's about recognizing that even in a conflict,
Yes.
there's still that like shared human element that connects us.
Exactly. And that choice, that decision to hold on to our humanity, even in the face of pressure, is what ultimately defines us.
Yeah.
It's a message that resonates just as strongly today as it did back in 1956.
It's funny, we started this deep dive talking about how Under Pressure was ahead of its time.
Right.
And yet, as we've been discussing it,
Yeah.
it feels incredibly relevant to the challenges we're facing today.
It's a testament to Herbert's genius that he was able to tap into these timeless themes.
Yeah.
The nature of leadership, the psychological impact of stress, and the consequences of conflict. These are issues that we continue to grapple with both individually and as a society.
And in a world that's increasingly feeling the pressure, like of global challenges,
Right.
climate change, political polarization,
Absolutely.
it feels like we could all use a little bit of that reminder to hold on to our empathy
Right.
and our shared humanity.
Absolutely.
So to wrap things up, if Under Pressure were to be adapted for a modern audience, maybe even like a Netflix series,
Okay.
what aspects of the story do you think would resonate most strongly today?
I think the themes of resource scarcity, the psychological impact of isolation and confinement, and the ethical dilemmas faced by leaders in high-pressure situations would all resonate deeply with contemporary viewers. Imagine a series that explores the challenges of deep-sea mining, the psychological toll of long-duration space travel,
Right.
or the moral compromises made in the pursuit of national security. The possibilities are endless.
I'm already hooked. It sounds like Frank Herbert's Under Pressure is more than just a sci-fi thriller. It's a mirror reflecting our own anxieties, our hopes, and our enduring search for meaning in a world that's constantly pushing us to our limits. So if you're looking for a book that will challenge you, captivate you, and leave you with plenty to think about, I highly recommend diving into Under Pressure.
You won't regret it.
That's it for our deep dive into Under Pressure. We hope you enjoyed the journey. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the world of ideas.